pirates are cool. I mean, they're not. They're actually horrible people for the most part, but we all grew up liking them. At least if you like sailing boats. We all tend to grow up liking things like Pirates of the Caribbean or, stories from the Age of Sail. Charles Vane is one of the most fascinating ones, one of the most notorious, and one of the most uncompromising pirates of the 18th century, to put it mildly. In many ways, he's one of the first pirates you think of when it comes to the golden age of piracy if you've done a bit of reading, right alongside the more commonly known Blackbeard. Vane was active primarily in the Caribbean during this period, specifically around the Bahamas and Nassau, becoming a key figure in the Pirate Republic and the mythos that surrounded it. But here's the thing, we don't actually know much about him, and what we do know about him is often fictitious in its nature, and it's pushed forward to us through portrayals such as the one from the TV show Black Sails, which amazing intro music, or the game Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So today, we're going to actually talk about Vane, and what we really do know. The answer is extremely little, if not anything, is actually known about Vane, especially his early life. We think he was born in the year of 1680, and it was most definitely in England, likely to a very poor family. The thing is, though, that records from the time are very sparse. The details about his upbringing remain very unclear, but if I were to hazard a guess, he was likely born near to the sea, and saw very little future in life ashore. Alternatively, he could have been born near a farm inland and made his way to the coast to find work. Like many pirates of his era, he likely began his career as a sailor, likely in small merchant ships, or possibly even getting into a privateer's crew during a wartime cruise. However, what we do know is that when the wars ended, privateering opportunities disappeared, and many sailors, Vane likely included, turned to piracy, and so the legends of the pirates were born. Not shockingly, those hunting pirates weren't entirely interested in understanding the lore and backstories of these individual characters, so that's all we really have to work with. It's about as clear as mud. By the 1710s though, people really started to learn about who this shadowy figure was. Vane had established himself as a pirate captain operating in the Caribbean, particularly around the Bahamas. During this time, the island of New Providence, specifically its harbour at Nassau, became a central base for pirates, and Britain effectively lost control over the region. Nassau itself functioned as a kind of informal pirate republic. It's not like the TV shows and books where, there's like big councils and they're talking about policy and such. It's a bit more hodgepodge than that. But either way, captains and crews lived outside of European government control and lorded over the island as effective warlords. Vane was able to leverage his personality and gravitas in this situation to not only rise as a successful captain, but also as a leader amongst major figures in the region such as Hornigold and Blackbeard. The way he was able to do this largely came down to Vane's reputation, and this in itself was largely shaped by his personality and leadership style. He was known for being extremely harsh, violent, and incredibly unpredictable, even when you compare him to other pirates like Blackbeard. In many ways, he was seen to be one of the most brutal, unpredictable, violent, and quick to temper of the lot. Whether this is an act or whether this was just a cruel personality, we don't know. While piracy itself was a brutal profession, many pirate crews operated with a surprising degree of democracy. They actually voted on decisions, they shared loot, and they were relatively equal. Vane, however, broke with this norm, and similar to Blackbeard, he was less inclined towards compromise, often ruling his ship through fear, intimidation, and beatings, which, it must be said, did cause some tension amongst the men. One of the most defining characteristics of Charles Vane, though, was his complete refusal to accept authority in absolutely any form. Had he stayed on land and been born 50 years later, it's the kind of thing that would have sent him to Australia as a convict. After having the happy time, though, the Crown had enough of the pirates, and in 1718, the British government, seeking to restore order in the Caribbean, offered a royal pardon to pirates willing to surrender. Many accepted the offer, seeing it as a chance to work to avoid execution and return to legal life. Especially the pirates who had a bit of wealth stored away. But Vane, this was just something he could not stomach. He rejected the pardon outright, choosing to continue to live as a pirate despite the increasing risks. His defiance became especially clear during an encounter with British naval forces. When a heavily armed warship entered Nassau Harbour to suppress the piracy once and for all, Vane set fire to one of his own captured ships and sent it towards the enemy vessel as a fire ship. If you want to learn more about fire ships, my co-host Rex did a great video on them a little while ago. Under the confusion, Vane and his crew slipped out of the harbour and escaped. Despite his ability to take prizes and avoid capture, his leadership style began to alienate his men. Pirates depended on cooperation and shared trust, and Vane's extreme decisions, particularly his willingness to engage stronger enemies or refuse safer opportunities, annoyed them. Real pirates were not Jack Sparrow. They did not fight the Royal Navy in fair fights, they ran away. They saved their ships and they avoided fights unless absolutely necessary. So I suppose they were kind of like Jack Sparrow, or at least Jack Sparrow's characteristics on what it's meant to be, rather than, his constant, I'm going to get in fights that I could easily run away from. But, and here is the same but, when you build your entire reputation on attacking enemy ships and being hyper-aggressive, you have to keep that reputation up, even if it's a fight you can't win. Vane here had backed himself into a corner, and the breaking point in Vane's crew would finally come in 1718 when he refused to attack a heavily armed French vessel, a decision his crew began to see as cowardly and inconsistent with his usual aggression, and in response, they staged a mutiny. The crew removed Vane from command and replaced him with another pirate captain, Calico Jack, or Jack Rackham, who was seen as a more agreeable and reliable leader than Vane. Vane and a small group of loyal followers were then set adrift on a small vessel, not too dissimilar to the fate that would befall Captain Bligh of the Bounty. His troubles didn't end there though, because after the mutiny he would attempt to get his pirate career back on track. But the thing is, without Nassau, and without supporters, he struggled. At one point, he was actually shipwrecked on a remote island after a storm destroyed his vessel. Completely stranded and isolated, he survived for a time before eventually being rescued. Unfortunately for Vane though, his rescue did not lead to freedom. The downside to being such a famous pirate was that upon his rescue, he was recognised almost immediately and arrested, and then transported to Jamaica, where he was put on trial for piracy. By this time, colonial authorities were done with piracy and they wanted to stamp it out completely, and the window for the pardon had already gone. Captured pirates were being made an example of. Vane's reputation and refusal to accept the earlier pardon worked against him here because, well, he couldn't just pretend that he was going to take it. He was found guilty and sentenced to be hung by the neck until dead. In 1721, the story of Charles Vane would finally come to an end when he was executed by hanging in Jamaica. His body was then reportedly displayed afterwards as a warning to others who might consider a life of piracy. While today he is largely forgotten about when compared to the other big names of the period like Hornigold, Blackbeard, who I've mentioned a few times because again, he's the most famous pirate of the period, and so many others, he is one of the more colourful figures from this time period, and it's led to some interesting displays in fiction in more recent years too. Given this video is quite short, because, well, there's only so much you can talk about on a man who's got nothing written about him, really, I figure we can have a quick chat about the two more prevalent portrayals on him. The one from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and the one from the TV series Black Sails. Now, in Black Sails, he's very broody, very quick to violence, but also very much a powerful, controlling figure. Like, he leads the Republic as somebody who will always do the right thing for the Republic. He's not as self-serving. Which, when you look at accounts from the man, is somewhat questionable. I mean, ultimately in that show, and turn off if you haven't seen it, spoilers, he gets executed on his own decision when he could have been saved because he knows his death will start the rebellion against the crown. So you can sort of see there's a bit of an issue when it comes to that would not occur in real life. And also in real life, we know he was hung by authorities. And it wasn't in Nassau, it was also in Kingston. So there are some key differences here. On the other side of the equation in the video game Black Flag, which is a bit more, we'll say a cartoonish version of Vane, he's almost mad. He's insane in many ways. And that's before he gets marooned on the island by Jack Rackham. He's so unpredictable. He's very strange. He's sort of, it's almost like they've mixed Jack Sparrow and added a bit of psychopathy in. Eventually, he does get knocked on the island with no supporters, only with the protagonist, Edward. And on this island, he goes completely mental, possibly drinking salt water, not sure. And he ends up getting killed by the protagonist on the island, and there is no rescue. The fishing boat still arrives to, rescue the main character, but yeah, it's not the same. It's completely different. But again, it's a video game. So these are two very different portrayals of the man. One is as a psycho, one is as a flawed but strong man leader. It's all a bit odd. Either way, the things we do know about Vane are fascinating. He captained a ship called the Ranger. This is shown in every single adaptation, although the Ranger is different. The most likely depiction is this here, is what it would have looked like. And I've shown this image a few times, it's also on the thumbnail. But that is Charles Vane. This is not a long video at all. It's incredibly short. It's probably one of the shortest on the channel. And that's because it's just to tide you over until my co-host releases his next big video, which is going to be much more significant than this one. But if you want more pirates though, particularly, others from this period and from around the world, be it in China, be it in the Caribbean, be it in Madagascar, you name it, pirates, pirates, pirates. Let me know in the comments or send a message in the Discord. In the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, if you're offered a pirate pardon or to continue piracy, maybe choose the lesser of two evils and take the pardon. Your neck will thank you for it later on.